Welcome to Travel Again Presents, the weekly travel roundup covering the headwinds and tailwinds impacting the business of travel. Please welcome our hosts, Mike McCormick and Ed Silver.
How you doing, Mike? Welcome.
Hey, Ed. Good to see you, as always.
Good to see you. We are on season 3, episode 5, and you might notice I have a slightly different view today. I am podcasting from the beautiful state of Colorado up in the foothills outside Denver, Mike.
Very nice. And for me, I'm in the usual spot, but I'm dressed for opening day of Major League Baseball. Put me in, coach. I'm ready. I'm ready to play. And we are the Phillies opener here in DC, where I am, and that's exciting too. So they're coming to town to kick off another year. So we'll see where that all goes, but I'm excited for another season.
It is awesome. Well, go Birds. I mean, go Phil. Sorry about that. Mike, we are cooking this season, and today we will, as always, review the news, and there continues to be some ups and downs in travel. Tariffs, Canada travel slowdown, travel bans, inbound travel slowing, consumer confidence lowering. You name it, and it may be having an impact on travel. Today, we can ask our guest how they are navigating it all. Our guest is a major player in the travel industry. We don't often get a deep dive into the marketing side of airlines. So today, that is exactly what we will do.
Well, so I'd say, let's dive into the news because, like you said, there is a lot of it. And it's interesting, a lot of the factors that shape travel. Probably the most resilient industry in the world, but at the same time, man, it's always a lot of interesting, headwinds and tailwinds, as we always say, right?
All right, Mike, let's bust right into it. Article 1 today from our friends at Skift. Recession watch for travel. These hotel insiders don't see it yet. The travel industry is on recession watch, but so far, at least, hotel operators aren't seeing a big pullback, according to the nearly dozen sources Skift has been tracking. There are signs of softening, however, and we'll be watching closely for any shifts in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
Mike, I'll throw up the article. Give us some context here. What's going on? Recession, no recession, slowdown, no slowdown? What do you see?
Well, I think that's exactly what you just said kind of sums it up in a lot of ways. I mean, look, travel is resilient. There's still, heavy demand in different pockets of the market, but what shapes that demand, changes. And, today, this year, looking forward in 2025, you can always try to draw off the past to some degree. But, as they say, the past is not always a good predictor of the future, right? So we have, interesting dynamics. The major airlines led by Delta, basically reduced their forecast for this year and said, look, things are softening and, need to give guidance in that respect. And I think in that way, as we know, I mean, look, the airline industry drives the travel industry. I mean, it's the kind of the beginnings of it. Whatever happens there is a good reflection of what we're seeing largely across the industry. However, not necessarily in every segment of the industry. Some are more positive, more negative. So I think what we're finding, like this first article, I think for hotel, there's some, let's say, cautious, as Marriott's CEO said, they're cautiously optimistic because they're still seeing relatively good, ADR, relatively good, demand. Everything seems, they're not seeing that same softening yet, but, they're also cautious that maybe things are changing, maybe given some of the geopolitical things happening, people are staying more domestic. And so they're still seeing the same, they're still seeing, healthy demand, but, again, cautious, right? Because we do hear the things about, travel into the US being, down significantly, right? And, starting to have impact. So there's a lot of factors at play here. But again, we'll talk about one of the other segments here that's booming, right? It's really interesting to see how that happens. But again, as we've seen, travel is resilient. People still find a way to travel to meet, both for leisure and for business travel. And whether that means, like, now for business travel, they're doing it more at conferences and events and meetings than they are necessarily in regular, individual business travel or transient travel. But then at the same time, leisure, again, people find like people still want a vacation. They still want to have leisure time. They still need to do things, but maybe the way they do it might change. Hotel seems to be holding up though for now, and good for the industry if it does.
Okay, Mike, let's just get right into Article 2 because you hinted at it from Travel Weekly.
Yeah.
U.S. economic worries don't seem to be slowing down Carnival Corporation. While Carnival Corp is not immune from macroeconomic and geopolitical volatility, the EO Josh Weinstein said business remains strong at the world's largest cruise company. So not impacting cruise yet, Mike.
No, and that's one of those on the leisure side. I mean, cruise is booming. I mean, let's just you can see it. Most of the lines every day seem to be announcing yet another commitment to adding more capacity, adding ships, adding the major cruise lines. Some of them are starting to add river cruises. They're just seeing nothing but positive demand coming. And again, it's a segment of the market, but now in previous down times, I mean, for example, again, post-COVID, cruise was the last to recover, but now it's leading in terms of the resiliency, and the business is just going gangbusters. So again, the ebbs and flows change constantly. This is another sector that seems to be doing well and just seems to be almost immune right now to any of the geopolitical say noise and headwinds that are there. It seems to be going as good or better than ever. So interesting to watch.
Okay. Shifting gears slightly, Mike, although maybe related, you tell us. United Airlines, it's all related. United Airlines raises credit card and lounge fees. Here's what we need to know from our friends at Skip. United Airlines announced Monday that it is raising fees for its credit card and lounge fee in a bid that the carrier says will make the cards more valuable to customers. The changes made alongside its banking partner, JP Morgan Chase, include more benefits such as rideshare credits, complementing Instacart membership. The new fees go into effect Monday for new signups. Benefits will still be active to existing customers. This generated a lot of, I'll call it, noise in the online travel and point world community, Mike. So maybe some perspective about what's going on here.
Well, I think, look, we've seen it very publicly in terms of like Southwest's decision after all this time, right, to start, announce that they're going to start charging for bags. There's always, look, airlines are businesses, and there's always pressure on always to beat last year's earnings, to keep increasing in terms of revenues and profitability. And at some point, the fees that are related to a lot of these services are going to continue to go up. I mean, that's just a fact of, if nothing else, inflation, but everything else, and just normal practices. But it's revenue management and just another part of the business, right? Where they're constantly looking for ways to do that. And also, we'll get into this with our interview today, but also ways that they in turn make their different loyalty offerings more valuable, right? Because if you're a loyal customer and you're not paying those fees, or at least not paying as much, that's a tangible benefit. So there's a lot of player, but it doesn't surprise me that some of that happens. But to your point, in the travel industry and with the public, those relatively seemingly small increases and changes in price get a lot of attention, which again is hey, look, travel is touches everyone, and everybody has something. If in another industry, another sector, somebody raised their prices somewhat, you wouldn't even hear about it till you went to pay, and you just realize when you paid for it. In travel, everything gets attention.
Okay, thank you for that, Mike. Mike, we will be right back with our guest. Recently, we recorded a spotlight episode covering Focusrite's latest report, the Focusrite Travel and Innovation, well, there's a mouthful, Travel Innovation and Technology Trends 2025. Yeah. And so we were thrilled with that spotlight episode. You can find that online, on our LinkedIn, on our website. The report covers the most significant innovation trends in travel technology and distribution for 2025 and beyond. Read the report on our website or at Focusrites. And register now for the second in their series, the New Agents Trends Series, Part 2, Impact on the In-Destination Experience. Register today for the online event series. It is April 22nd at 11 a.m. Eastern. And that was a good one. The first one was great, Mike, and I'm sure the second one will be great as well. All right, now on to our guest. Today, we have Alicia Tillman. Alicia Tillman, an executive leader with more than 2 decades of experience in global marketing, sales, and strategy, is Delta's Chief Marketing Officer and a member of the Delta Leadership Committee. Tillman leads Delta's brand strategy, overseeing the airline's world-class global marketing, creative services, and community engagement teams, bringing its story to life and deepening its relationship with customers and the world as a trusted consumer brand. Tillman's marketing credentials include leadership experience as the global CMO at SAP and an 11-year tenure at American Express, and Forbes has named her one of the most influential CMOs in the world. Please join me in welcoming Alicia Tillman to the stage. Alicia,
Hey, Alicia.
nice to have you.
Hey, thank you for having me today. It's such an honor.
No, it's an honor to have you. It's great. I mean,
Ours.
look, I mean, Alicia, disclosure, right? You and I started off early in our careers in the same company. We're more Rosenbluth alumni back in the day, and but man, you've had an incredible journey. Like, I mean, in terms of the companies, what you've been involved in, and what led you now to this role. I mean, how have all those experiences shaped you? I mean, I always talk about those early days and the impact it had on me in my career. But, you've had some, again, how do you bring all that to your job at Delta today?
Well, truth be told, it was interesting when I started my role at Rosenbluth International in Philadelphia. And real quick story on Rosenbluth. I grew up in Princeton, New Jersey, so I was equal distance between Philadelphia and New York. And my dream was always,
what's the stories?
Yeah. Okay, the sports. You probably want to know where my allegiance is from a sports perspective,
Yes.
right? I heard a Go Birds, so I will say diehard Eagles fan. So Ed, I will make you happy. But Mike, I am sadly going to make you very disappointed when I reveal my baseball team. So for whatever reason, it's so crazy. You always follow, your parents in a lot of ways when it comes to like sports allegiance. And so my dad loved Eagles, Sixers, but he was a Mets fan.
Oh.
Yes, it's so wild. But then, when I had kids, we were living in and around New York City. And so then my son naturally became a Yankees fan. So and now I'm in Atlanta. So I love the Braves. It's like we're all over the place as a family now.
That's tough. The only thing you could have said worse, though, really a lot worse, is if you told me, well, yeah, but I'm really a Cowboys fan. I would have been like, okay, end the podcast right
allowed.
there. I mean, come on. I have a little more tolerance in baseball.
I agree. And I've said, okay, so in my household, my son is a, diehard New York. So he's a Giants fan. Yeah. My son grew up in Northern Virginia. So he's Commanders. And so we've got practically the whole NFC East covered in our household, except for the Cowboys, because it's just simply not allowed.
It's wrong.
No,
it's wrong.
Verboten.
That would be bad parenting. That would.
And I agree. So my story on Rosenbluth, I wanted to work in Philly first. It, for whatever reason, felt like a city that was less intimidating than New York. But I didn't know where to start. So I picked up Fortune Magazine's 100 Best Companies to Work For in America. And I scanned down the list. And the very first Philadelphia-based company was Rosenbluth International. And it sat at number 34 on the list. I remember it to this day. And a story you don't know is at the time, I went to Rosenbluth's website, and the head of marketing role was available. So here I was, no experience, fresh out of school, and I put in my resume to be the head of marketing for Rosenbluth National. And I, of course, did not get that job with zero experience, but I did get accepted into our floating manager program. I don't know if you recall that. And it's where you got invited into the 6-month program, of which you rotated through every single department in the company over this 6-month period. And I went through that, and I will tell you, not having any idea what was to become of my career, I said, this is the best job I will ever have. And I stand here today and I still say the same. And it's for 2 reasons. Number one, what kid out of school has the ability to literally sit in every single department in a company to really just understand, like, why is a corporation a corporation? Like, why do we need all of these departments and how do they work together? And so to be able to see that, it just helped me get a real appreciation for how you work together across the various departments that exist in a business. And it was the best company for me to start at, because at the heart, as we know, Mike, which is the Rosenbluth secret sauce, is this tremendous care and empathy and respect for people, our employees, being truly what sets your brand apart from any other on the planet. Is when you invest in your employees first. That's when they, really bring their authentic self to the customer. And that shaped me. And it also shaped my ability to work effectively in navigating through a corporation.
I totally have my own version of that story with Rosenbluth, and to Hal Rosenbluth's credit and the whole team there. I mean, those early days, the amount of mentoring I got, I look back now and I'm like, I feel bad for people today in this environment, because it's rare that you could even have those kind of opportunities anymore. I mean, I got a education about business and management and leadership in a way that I think is unmatched. I mean, and that's why a part of what, really shaped, all of us in our careers, because you see the people throughout the industry, and our common bond was that environment. I mean, you were ultimately given responsibilities. I was like way ahead of probably what we would have been able to get in any other company. And they took, there was a lot of faith and risk in us, but they also gave us the support. I mean, we learned on the job, like you said, and it's fantastic. And you hit on that now, like in terms of culture and kind of maybe shifting gears to Delta. But Delta has also a long history of being customer first and internal culture. And I've dealt with Delta as a customer of theirs, and a client of theirs, business wise, very much. And then also the reverse, where and man, you just always get a very positive, feel, like just walking the hallways and dealing with people, and to be able to do that. And also, but then also be able to turn that into the level of business success it's had. It's not easy. How do you translate? How do you effectively translate from a marketing perspective? How do you project that? Are there things you deliberately do? Like, how do you translate that into your storytelling and everything? I mean, it's really, it's not an easy, in some ways it's great, but in other ways, not always easy, right?
Yeah. And it's it's sort of, my career has come full circle in many ways, because I started my career at Rosenbluth's vision and leadership on how important it is to take care of your employees, where Ed Bastian 100% shares the same philosophy. And it's a wonder why I, am here, because you often are drawn to sort of what's at your core, and what's really aligned with your values, and in our people is truly unrivaled. And that's just not in our industry. I've had the great privilege of working in a few industries where I've seen it firsthand. It's unrivaled, frankly, across industries, the investments we make in learning and development and reward and recognition,
Right.
all the things that really help feed our souls, which then ultimately becomes then how we operate day to day in delivering the goodness of our brands. And we always say, as you know, most CEOs typically do, our people are our most valuable asset. And there's an expectation that companies put on their people when it comes to delivering the service they expect. But oftentimes companies aren't as accountable as they need to be in the investment companies need to make to be able to enable that at the
Right.
same time. Delta does that and does it so well. And so in a lot of ways, Mike, my job is a bit easy because I get to just tell the great story of just the authentic way in which our people operate, and our customers can really can really showcase that and say, yeah, you know, it's right. The interactions that I have with Delta people, be it from the flight attendants to the reservationists to the pilots, it feels like it's coming from the inside with every service experience that you have. And so, you know, we spend a lot of time, we have 100,000 employees. We sit here in our centennial year, the first domestic carrier to turn 100 years old. And it's so interesting when someone turns 100 years old, usually they're not at the top of their game anymore. But Delta is number one financially, number one operationally, number one from a premium perspective. The consistency in the accolades that the company receives. I woke up yesterday morning and Ed is gracing the cover of Fortune magazine. And the story is all about one of resilience. And, you know, if you think, you know, back through these 100 years of Delta, you know, of course, we know of all of the challenges from SARS to September the 11th to a global pandemic. But then you think of the individual challenges then to Delta on bankruptcy and the merger with Northwest, and all the things in between that we know are, you know, just direct impact on the industry. Yet here is a company who has overcome it all. And I will say time and time again, it is because of the investment we make in the people and how our people rise up every single time to lead and to really put all of their strength behind the operation and to really help fuel that loyalty that we're just so proud of that we have with our customer base.
How do you deal with, I mean, I imagine you have a significant amount of resource dealing with all the, you know, social media in all its forms, right? You have a lot of influencers, a lot of, you know, there's always tons of poking at individual experiences. Everybody's experiences are known. How do you deal with that as a brand? I mean, it must be, I mean, the daily task alone of monitoring all of it alone is not insignificant. But what do you do on that front? How do you deal with the naysayers, in a sense, out there in the world?
Well, I will say we deal with it as transparently as we can and should be. And I'll say this. I'll talk about it in terms of how we manage it kind of online in this digital universe that we all operate in today. But I'll also talk about it, you know, in the context of, you know, how our pilots, how our flight attendants manage through it as well. And we hear time and time again, if we are in the middle of an irregular operation where, you know, there's a delay, there's a cancellation, we hear time and time again from a service recovery perspective that our customers value more transparent and open communication than any form of compensation that we give to them as a result of a service disruption.
Makes a huge difference.
It makes such a huge difference. I mean, we all know, even living through the pandemic, people just wanted to hear from people, even if they just simply didn't have any updates to share. It's that it's
Yeah.
that human connection to know that, hey, we're in it, we're dealing with it. Here's what I know now, and I'm going to be back to you in a little bit just to give you another update, if even if there isn't really something of substance to share. And so one of the things that we're doing, and if you've flown on Delta recently, hopefully you're recognizing this. We're trying to bring our pilots more visible with the passengers. So pilots coming to the front of the cabin, and so everyone can see them, and they're talking with them about their journey, what to expect. Here's what we're going to do from a service perspective if there's going to be some disruptions along the journey. But we find when our passengers can see the pilots, in addition to hearing from the pilots, we see our overall satisfaction with that one flight experience go up significantly as a result of it. And
Yep.
so that's just in itself related to the operation. Now, to your question on social, sure, people take to social with everything. Happy, sad, angry, you name it. Social has become this playground for all of it. And my team is not as big as maybe one would expect, with a consumer brand as large as ours. But what we do is we engage, right? Like if someone is unhappy, immediately we engage with them and we help them, whether it's communication or what can we do to make this better for you. We are constantly, and obviously there's often great volume. The good news, though, that I will say, the negative volume is definitely not at the volume of the positivity that we see our customers out there talking about related to Delta, but we engage with them as well. We like our happy customers, but we also want to take care of our customers. And so just being on it, we are always on as a team. It's a 24/7 operation. And if somebody's struggling or they need help or what have you, like we're committed to be on. It's hard. It's not easy. We make it happen. We're doing the juggle. It's real. But we do our best to just engage as much as we can everywhere when someone has something going on online, that especially when they're struggling with something.
Great.
So part of your, purview, and certainly Delta's, and it's been well written about, the value of your loyalty program, and, comparisons have been made about, how in effect the loyalty program is more valuable than the airline itself, or, those kinds of, which I take a little bit of like in context of, well, you got to have an actual genuine brand operation and everything before you get to the loyalty element of it. So a little bit of the cart before the horse to me. But the realities are it's incredibly important and it's a huge currency. What do you, where's that going? Like, where do you, like, part of your purview, I think, is really finding ways to extend your brand. I want to do a shout out for your Sphere program, because I thought it was great. Like, again, test and learn, but like you went out and you made a commitment to doing something different, to try to project the brand in a different way. And I thought it was great. And you're always going to have a few naysayers, like, why were they doing this? Why? It's like, well, they're doing it because they're actually trying to bring new elements of marketing and reach customers in a different way. And I thought it was really innovative.
Yeah.
But I mean,
and tell your story in a unique way. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it's great. And what an incredible venue to do it in too. So that's beside the point. But the where do you think loyalty is going, and where do you, what role do you see that playing, and what's the future hold?
Well, I mean, we all know. So it was really the airline industry that architected the very first notion of a loyalty program. You think back to the early 1980s with the architecture of frequent flyer programs, which, then you have kind of every industry and category on the planet that have now since, of course, created their version of what the airline industry had created. But it's evolving, and it's evolving significantly, especially when we look at the evolution behaviorally of the different age demographics that are coming in. And so here's a couple of things that I will say, because loyalty is certainly the most precious asset that we have, and it comes in many forms. So number one, we absolutely want to be the world's most loved loyalty program. And so if that is the aspiration, then we need to make sure that there are many facets to this program. So of course, your traditional frequent flyer program, which academically is it's a spend and get model, of which the redemption is primarily with assets that exist along the travel ribbon, right? So very simply, it's like you spend this, you get this in terms of upgrades or future travel certificates. That evolved a bit over time. And so there was partnerships that, again, were from a travel ribbon standpoint across air, car, and hotel. Right. To now where we are today, which is, how do we kind of expand the ecosystem of what we are rewarding our travelers with based on their purchasing with us? And so by that, we live in a world today, and we see this emerging with a lot of our younger demographics, is that if there's a loyalty to us and there's an incredibly strong loyalty to Delta, our travelers are saying, well, there are other brands that also exist in my life. And how does Delta open up access to those brands through your channel for me as well? One such example is our partnership with Starbucks. So one could say, well, that's not really part of like your traditional air, car, and hotel travel ribbon. But many would argue, but everybody needs their coffee to be able to make that travel experience possible. Yep. But it's not, traditionally kind of in that ribbon. Our Starbucks partnership has performed beautifully for us. Beautifully, especially amongst our Gen Z population, who are representative of where our future travel growth is going to come from. But we've also expanded by way of partnership into different categories as well. Entertainment, our partnership with Paramount Plus; mobility, our partnership with T-Mobile. We're looking at retail and health and wellness, because this is all part of our travelers' lifestyle. When we think about where we are transporting them to, it's many destinations and places in the world where these brands are very much a part of their life. And so, we can continue to, invest, and we will, in our category, but the opportunity for us is real category transcension. And in order to achieve that, how do we start to become much more of an active part of our customers' lifestyle by making our loyalty program provide benefits that sort of bridge their spend with us into other brands that they love when they're on their travel journey with us. And so that is just, it's so important. We announced the exclusive YouTube partnership at CES in January of this year. We'll be the only airline to carry exclusive YouTube content on board, which we'll start offering here in a couple of months. Uber will be our exclusive rideshare partner. There'll be an Uber Eats component that will exist within that, to even like onboard partnerships. Like we just introduced our relationship with Shake Shack on board. And oh my goodness, has that been taking off like wildfire in terms of like meal pre-select? The number of people on board who are on the majority selecting Shake Shack as their in-flight meal, it's been beyond the highest performing option that we've offered in history, because it's a cool brand. It's different, it's unique, and that's a lot of what consumers want today, and what helps to deepen their loyalty with us as their brand.
Right. No, it's interesting. Yeah. And and then at the same time, I mean, again, back to the core, right? It's like ensuring the authenticity, right? That you want to, but you still have to kind of stay with, it's a balance, right? Because you still want to make sure that those relationships are really truly add something unique and add value, right? There's a risk that you can you can get so far out that you start to lose your sense of self too, in terms of what your brand is about. But you're not there, but it could happen, right? It
No.
has happened.
Yeah,
in companies.
but Shake Shack was a curveball that I thought was a great twist. I thought that was a great, partnership to announce. So kudos on that one.
Thank
I'm
you.
always amazed at the operational part of those things, though. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like pulling that off is like, just what it takes to make that like deliver on the value. Yeah, I want
Quality.
that, but the behind the scenes, man, that's no small feat.
Not at all. And
Yeah.
that was very important to us. If and same for Shake Shack, right? If this is not
Well, yeah.
the same quality
Yeah.
that you would get in one of their locations, then it's just not going to be feasible for us to be successful with this on board. And the good news is we worked hard, we tested hard, and it's just been exceptional for us on board. And we're going to continue to have, really fun brand collaborations like that. But to your point, Mike, it's really important that these are real true category adjacencies, ones that make sense and fit versus something that feels just so disconnected that even the best person can't message why this is sitting hand in hand. And there's many ways that you can kind of message why these are coming together, whether it be a brand that you experience on your travel journey to a brand that really fits with us in terms of sharing values. Like there's lots of different ways to kind of think about, how to kind of bring an ecosystem of brands together that really feel like, not only are we kind of part of the same world, but we believe in the same things and we help enable people's lifestyles and their journeys in very similar ways, but perhaps just executed a bit differently. And so we're really thoughtful about those brands because we want everything to certainly feel connected. And a lot of it is driven by precisely what we're hearing from our customers. It's like, we know that they're fans of this brand, and it's how do we bring them, closer so that they're able to access that through Delta. That's
great. Well, I'm going to shift to our wrap-up question. This is on the personal level. This is our season 3 wrap-up. We say, we're all faced with real and perceived chaos in our personal and professional lives. Like, how do you cope with chaos? You're in a job that's very high profile and never know what each day is going to bring. Like, how do you cope with your chaos personally?
Well, it's recognizing kind of, what always keeps you center. So, I always say I'm a mom and a wife first. And, I happen to have, a really awesome career that, I've always believed, and I say this to my kids all the time, and I do actually think this is one moment where they listen to me, which is, I do think I'm a better mom because of the career I have. And I think I'm a better professional because I'm a mom. Because there's oftentimes, each demands kind of different qualities. And so at the same time, if those qualities can coexist, like, for example, being very process oriented and, having a clear vision and, being relentless in my pursuit of excellence, to be able to run a household with kind of the same mentality, it puts my kids on a path to kind of, believe in the power of hard work and believe in things like responsibility and accountability and knowing who you are and going for it. And so that's how that translates on that side. And then on the other side, you got to have like a lot of patience and understanding and empathy, as a parent. And having that quality brought into my career, allows me to be a real people first leader. And being in touch with and responsive to people's needs and their wants and their desires and how I work to enable them. That's what is just the beautiful thing that I take to heart, and it's sort of what keeps me center. And, to your question, what helps me cope with the chaos. So, like, I live off of the juggle, because it's rewarding,
Yeah.
to see how each can sort of benefit from each other. And that's a fun position to be able to be in. And so it allows me to just appreciate and cope with the chaos every single day.
Great. It's a great answer. I mean, it really is.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's great.
parenting certainly keeps you grounded. For sure.
If there's one thing that keeps you grounded, it's your children, or in your place.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, wow. I mean, it's like the world has certainly changed from a parenting perspective. It's like I felt like when I grew up, my parents were in control, and it's like I'm waiting for the day when I am in control of my household because my kids are running our household. What's
You're gonna have a
happened?
long wait.
Oh, I know. It's wonderful.
Well, well, Alicia, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on and sharing your insight. Really, really interesting, and some really terrific insight about Delta and you and your role. So again, all the best, and happy to have you.
Oh,
Thank
and
you,
again,
Alicia.
it's been an absolute privilege. I have loved spending the time with you, and thank you again for having me.
All right, great.
All right, thank you, Alicia. Alicia Tillman is the Chief Marketing Officer of Delta Airlines. Thank you, Alicia, for your time. Cheers.
You.
Wow, a great interview, Mike.
Yeah.
Really, just fascinating to see the perspective inside of a marketing of such a massive,
Yeah.
infrastructure. I really enjoyed that. What were some of your key takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I'm really it's that I think the one point we talk about, like, finding that balance between wanting to do like so much in terms of the program and the partnerships and the everything about, but the importance of kind of keeping that genuine and grounded, like, because we talk a lot, genuine brands to me like are, there's so many brands out there that are, it's not even about the age of the brand. It's kind of like, do you feel like a genuine connection, like, to the brand? Do you feel like the people working there are truly trying to do the right thing and to live out that brand and that mission? And that's not easy to do. It's very hard to do, actually, especially at the scale they have to do it. And I just, again, it's impressive, right? But it's like an amazing, basically block of clay to work with from a marketing perspective. But also, it's hard because you're always being tested. You're always, they're the leader of the airline industry. And so that comes with an incredible amount of responsibility. Everybody's watching you all the time, and that's so. Again, I think it's just fascinating. It's like to hear, like, from her perspective how she manages through that and how they do as a company. And as always, a million business books have been written, but it's all top down, man. If the CEO, the leadership, that if they haven't bought in and they're not doing it every day, then it doesn't happen. I mean, it's just, yeah.
And they're clearly willing to take interesting and unique, twists on, with their brand, from the Sphere to Shake Shack. There's slight curveballs, but then you stop and you think, and you're like, that really is kind of core to who Delta is, and really could benefit me as a traveler. And so those are two, I think, great examples of her influence, on things so far.
Yeah. So again, just really good insight for sure.
All right, Mike, that is our show today. If you have a challenge in your business or want to better understand the chaotic world of travel, reach out to us at Travel Again to see how we can help bring clarity to your business, now backed by Focusrite data and research. We will see you back again during our next show in a few weeks. Mike, as always, great to see you.
Great to see you, Ed.